report?
Your lives.
Or
Too.
the audio's
You
not
see
on?
at least on here, on our
The
page,
audio's
yeah.
not on?
No, I can't see this camera.
I haven't got a notification that Crispy is live, so not yet. Not yet, anyways. My phone will probably go off.
Is there audio?
Yep. Yeah, we've gotten that now down. We're pretty good at that now. First couple times was not quite so smooth.
Rough on that.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
You got a camera, Russ? So we're live right now, right?
Sweet.
Welcome. How are you?
Just take that mic and point it straight down.
This one? All right. So as you guys know, this is just real, right? You can see everything we're doing. So I'm David and Warren. They're both here from Raised Hunting. And tonight we got some special guests, so we want to thank you guys for joining us again. You know, it seems like did I miss last week? I did. I was at camp.
No, I think it was a week before that.
I
We
don't
did.
know.
We were both here last week.
Okay.
Yep.
I've lost track. And that happens. When you get to be my age, there's two things that happen. One, you can't remember what's going on, and if you need to pee, you go now. Okay? So I'm just warning you guys that aren't 50 yet. That's how it works. No, so tonight, though, yes, it looks like we're kindergartners sitting at this table, all except for Coburn, who's sitting across from us. And so we want to introduce, I don't need to introduce Warren, I don't think. I think everyone knows who he is. But I do need to introduce Coburn and Chris B. And these guys have come down to visit with us this week because we're doing some working together on building some new instructional videos that we think you guys are going to truly enjoy.
You will. I mean, like I told you already from the questions that we've asked, the amount of stuff people are going to learn from this is going to be ridiculous.
Absolutely exceptional. So before we even get started, I would like to personally say thank you because, and not just for the stuff that I've learned, and I haven't been out there every day when we've been filming, but I mean, I'm picking up tips and things like that. And, but I know I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who's going to get this because the Raised Outdoor app is where we'll house all this. And I'm telling you guys, if you want to know how to shoot a bow and shoot it well, I think we have the right person here, right two people, honestly. So
I don't
anyhow.
know. Missed that wolf's skull.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he did well. We asked him to shoot a wolf between the eyes at 42 yards out of a tree stand, a little windy. And I mean, I guess I just wasn't clear. I said shoot it between the eyes, and he did, but he didn't hit the crease. I was talking, you know, two eyes are like this, and you're supposed to hit here. He was at least a quarter to a half inch off. That's, I mean, it's good, but I've seen better, you know.
Yeah,
I mean.
right.
So anyhow.
No, that was fun.
No, so anyhow, I guess, Chris, if you don't mind, just for some of those folks out there, because on our page, they may not know who Chris B is. I mean, there's still people that come to our page that don't know who we are, and that's okay.
Right.
So do you mind giving them a little background about, you know, who you are and how we got to this point?
Yeah, so I do, I shoot competition archery.
He's a professional archer.
Professional archery, yeah. Name professional. I bought the pro card, so I'm pro.
Right.
But yeah, I shoot professional archery, and then I have a YouTube channel, YouTube page. So, and that's really over the past year has grown a lot, but I've made videos forever as long as I could, pretty much.
Right.
Just really enjoy that. And yeah, I do a lot. I try to do a lot in the sport. I do a lot of hunting. I travel a bunch. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
How long have you been
just
shooting a
posted
bow?
his link in there for you guys, so go and check out his videos. He's got some awesome stuff on there.
How long you been shooting a bow?
So I have been shooting for probably, I don't know, like 15 years or so.
And
I started with like a little tiny red bow when I was like 6 or 7.
Right.
You know, everyone's done
Yeah.
that. And then I shot my first deer when I was 10 with the bow, little 6-point. And from there, I just kind of kept growing at it. I started shooting a local program called JOAD, Junior Olympic Archery Development.
Right.
And just a club down the road, Livingston Conservation Sports Association in Michigan. And every Saturday morning we'd shoot, you know, and for the first 2 years or so, I just like shot for fun. And then everyone was going to like a state shoot tournament. So we decided to, you know, maybe we'll try out the tournament thing. So we shot like one tournament that first year, and then the next year we shot like 3 or 4 or 5 local ones. And then the next year we like shot nationals, and then it just kind of like kept growing and growing and upgrading equipment and, you know, getting different coaches and just kind of
Figuring it out.
Yeah, grew from there, figured it out. It happened really organically, you know, the whole process.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about today. Is it's insane how much other information is in all of this stuff. You know, when on the surface,
Yeah.
I mean, we're just barely touching stuff to be able to make sure we can hit something
Yeah.
good with our bows, an animal, you know, and
Right.
and
Yeah.
you guys are figuring out how to hit dimes and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that we don't realize is how much information a guy actually learns.
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize that he knows all this.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there that could use that kind of help, you
No,
know?
for
And
sure.
so being able to look back at yourself and say, wait a minute, you know, even a term, you might use a word and someone's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You know?
No, well, even when we were filming and stuff, they're like, hold on, maybe you should explain that a little bit more because we don't even know what that is.
So Coburn, can I get you to kind of do the same? And I think I'd like for someone to kind of talk about how we ended up together. I mean, I know how it, you know, how this all worked, but I think you were kind of the one that facilitated some of this. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in Montana, lived out there in Livingston for quite a few years, and enjoyed hunting, just the hunting part of it, and really, really enjoyed it. And then kind of somebody's like, well, you should try bow hunting. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'll stick with hunting. I just enjoyed it. And then they're like, no, you should really try it. So I just started shooting and went to a really awesome shop, and they're just a great guys there. And the owner there actually kind of just, it's like, hey, here, kind of come
that in Butte?
shoot. That was in Bozeman.
Bozeman.
In Bozeman,
was
yeah.
that Big Sky?
No, it's Extreme Performance Archery.
Okay,
It
I
was
was
Yellowstone Gateway Sports.
Okay, yeah.
So right
Ted
there,
Krause,
yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
Ted Krause,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So they actually sold that, and a buddy of mine was one of the, I guess he's one of the owners now, Jim. Anyways, he's just like, you should shoot we have a winter league. You should come shoot with us. So I started shooting the winter league, and I mean, I'm 14 at that time. And I'd shot a lot and just enjoyed shooting at that point, but then went and he's just like, hey, you should shoot this. You should come shoot this and try this, and just kind of the same thing. And I grew to the love of shooting or hunting, elk hunting. That was just my passion for, you know, as a young kid, and then being able to go move on to that. And then he's just like, hey, you should come shoot this 3D tournament. I'm like, well, what's that? And so it just kind of same thing, just kind of continued through it. And then actually won a couple of pretty cool shoots out there in Montana. Won actually quite a few shoots. And so it just kind of grew from there. And then a few years ago, about 5 years ago now, we moved to Iowa. So got to move to Dubuque and get
How did you know know each other then?
So
How'd guys
you
meet?
came to one of the seminars that I did, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was
Yep.
there. I was there with Chad and Marcia Shear, which were some friends of ours, and I think I'd met you. You'd come to do that on turkey hunting. It was early spring turkey hunting, and met you there, and we just kind of talked for probably 45 minutes to an hour after that, and I was 14, 15 years old at that point, and we just kind of talked, and it was pretty cool. And then wound up running into you a little bit later on with Chad and Marcia, I think a little bit later on. So yeah, getting to talk to them guys, and then seeing each other at the ATA show here, there, just back and forth, and then being able to meet up again. And we hadn't seen each other in quite a while, and that's kind of cool. I'm like, hey,
It was
guess
like
what? I
7
moved
or
to
8
Iowa.
years,
Yeah.
you know, and then I ran into Coburn at ATA this year.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, if you want to come down and help us with Raise the Full Draw, you know, the whole camp thing that we have. And he was like, sure. And it turned out that we were going to host the shoot at the Iowa Deer Classic. So Coburn said, let me come down and help you guys, because we didn't understand. I mean, to be honest, we're focusing on the kids and getting people started hunting.
Yeah.
And here we are going to try to conduct a 3D shoot.
Right.
And we did it last year, and it went okay, but we wanted to change things. And so he says, hey, I've shot competitively, and I know kind of what's going on. I also have some friends out there, and I didn't know who Chris B was at the time.
Right.
And
Well, that wasn't even planned.
That was
what
was crazy.
funny.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, me and Coburn met at
Yeah.
ATA this year. He was just like, "Hey, saw your videos or whatever," and we talked and exchanged info. And then Iowa Deer Classic, like Travis Johnson, who's a good buddy of mine in Michigan, he was like, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." So that was like last minute decision just to go out there. And he's like, "Let's just shoot. Like I know there's a shoot. Let's just like bring our bows and go." And then I was like, I think I hit you up. And I was like,
he's
"Are you
just like,
going?"
I'm like, I'm here.
And you're like,
He's
and
like,
so then we
come on,
met, and
baby.
then we met, and yeah, and
Yeah.
he does a couple videos and
so,
stuff.
I mean,
it was
it's
fun.
cool how God works, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, he
absolutely.
kind of points.
Total just came together.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
And so, I mean, what turned out to be years ago in Montana to ATA this year for you guys and us, kind of,
Yeah.
and then to Raise the Full Draw, and then everything that you're doing, and then now we're building videos to help
Right.
other people get better at hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool deal.
Yeah,
And you-
crazy
I mean, and I want to point this out, that because this could end up being the same kind of thing as today, as I'm driving in to do the podcast. our COO, Donise Peterson, calls me and says, hey, how long is Chris going to be here? And I said, I have to see, you know, if he, and anyhow, long story short, one of the kids that's coming to camp, his mom is bringing him from Ohio.
Yeah.
He saw you did something for Raise the Full Draw on your page, and that's how they saw it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they
That's
were like,
cool.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it just tells you how small a world. I mean, will that kid be sitting somewhere 7 years from now talking about, hey, I met Chris here, and now look at what's going on. And man, guys, that's what we've got to do. We've got to promote this whole thing, the tournament stuff and the hunting stuff, or we're going to lose it. And so that's kind of what we're doing today, is just kind of talking about some of that and some of the knowledge that you have, though. So have people started to ask any questions? We haven't really.
You haven't given him an opportunity to.
So
You guys know how this works.
can't help it.
But so with that being said, that's kind of how all this came together. Is we wanted to do the archery some more, give people all the information that we could, and we're like, well, you know, I think Chris has a lot more information than we do. Let's see if we could work something out with him. So if you don't mind, I think we're gonna. You guys ask questions. Bring your questions in. We got a whole bunch of people commenting right now. So if you've ever wanted an opportunity to ask a professional archer anything about archery, this would be a really good time to do it. But with that being said, we have some questions of our own, just because we're obviously not professional archers either.
Yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of questions listed on here. Let's see which one we want to hit you with first. I think we'll kind of try and start with maybe some more basic stuff, and then just getting a little more advanced and see, kind of get your guys' opinions on some of that. What do you think would be a good one to start with?
Well, I think a lot of things, some of the stuff people are going to want to know. So, at what age did you decide to go professional? Was there a determination, or what is the qualification, and how do people do that?
Yeah, so there's really no correct way or path to that. You know, I shot, you know, I went to, by the time I was like 15, 16, I started going to like most of the major events. You know, I was, you know, doing good in the youth division, and there was one big tournament every year. It's in Vegas. It's like considered worlds. Like everyone who's in archery is there.
Okay.
So I decided when I was 16 just to like jump in and at least out of all the events, just do this one, like in the pro class, which anyone really can sign up in the pro class in Vegas. You just pay more money and go in, you know, just bite the bullet and do it. So I did that, and I shot really well. I shot at 899 on 900, and that kind of kick-started like my start to, you know, maybe this can be something.
Hold on, 899 out of 900.
So yeah, there's a 300 round, which is the 3-spot scoring. You shoot 30 arrows. So you shoot 30 arrows each day. So the first day I shot a 300. Second day I shot a 300. So now there was only like 18 of us left.
Yeah.
And that were considered clean.
Right.
So there's always like right around that 20 mark. So the last day I dropped one on my 7th end. So I only had three more ends to go to shoot a perfect 900. But yeah, I kind of like kick-started it, and then I just started shooting some more stuff, and like really just shooting in the adult class and the pro classes. I mean, besides in different organizations, you can do different things. Like in USA Archery, you just sign up in the pro class, but for National Field Archery Association, you like buy a pro card, and you have to like meet certain requirements and
Gotta go to
yada
so many
yada
shoots.
yada. Exactly, yeah. So there are some requirements, but yeah, that was kind of like my turning point where I knew that I should try to shoot more in those classes and stuff.
So I think that would be a really good one that we just talked about today, is all the different kinds of releases.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the first one we talked about was, so give us the rundown, just because I know there's a bunch of people out there that probably have no idea on the 3 basic releases and some of the advantages, disadvantages that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And then I know you love Target Panic, but we got a couple questions on that already.
I just saw someone commented on there about winging it, you know. And I was gonna say,
Yeah, so you're gonna might be having to run into that one. Or here we have another one too. If you want to answer John Melton, he says, how does pro archery carry over to the field? Is the live pressure to make the shot any different?
Yeah, yes and no on that question. I mean, definitely being in a pressure situation, more shooting tournaments and stuff helps. Like we were just talking about today in one of the videos, it's like we were talking about process. So like when you shoot, you know, practicing in tournaments and stuff, you think about process, step by step by step. you have a rhythm. And so when, you know, you go hunting and you're in that pressure situation, you still have that same process. So it helps a lot, you know, just to make that good shot.
Would you
So-
say there's more pressure in a situation where you have like a shoot off and really
So, yeah, it's-
and a
it's
big
diff-
buck?
it's
You gotta
different.
compare it.
It's different.
So-
If you had
I don't
to
even
choose
know.
one that you think would be easier for you to make the
gosh.
shot, which one are you doing?
Like Warren said, you know how this goes. Warren's going to keep poking
No,
until he
it's
gets
fine.
the answer he wants, you know.
So in tournaments and stuff, like shoot off situations, it's like you almost get in like a zone, you know, and you're nervous. It's like an expectation, nervous, and like a nervous not to like mess up and, you know, whatever. But shooting a deer, like you get so jacked. Like I definitely get more jacked shooting a deer, like
Absolutely.
shaking and, you
Right.
know,
Right.
so
Absolutely.
the tournaments, they're two different nerves.
It is.
almost,
I would
you know? Yeah.
think so, for
Yeah.
sure. And because I mean, I can only say for myself, I think the reason that I don't shoot tournaments and things like that, I've never shot competitively at all,
Yeah.
was because I didn't like that feeling. Where
Right.
when I was in the woods, I could kind of control it, you know. And
Yeah.
and we've done a whole podcast on how do you do that. And my
Right.
technique is that I tell myself I'm not going to get the shot. The deer's not going to come in close enough. Okay, it did. It's not going to turn broadside. Okay, it did. It's not going to ever let me get the full draw. Okay, it did. Now you know, okay, well now I'm already here. I shoot. Then you get that adrenaline dump. But I
Yeah.
got past that because I was like, it's never going to happen.
Right.
And so
That doesn't work for me.
That's
No.
yeah,
That's where it goes different too with shooting competitively. You're just like, all right, you need to make the shot, or I'm going to make the shot. It's not completely opposite, but having that process
Right.
is definitely like that's the whole different side, I guess it can be of it, because it's like, hey, I mean, you've got to make the shot. You've done it, and you've already shot however many targets before it or ends before it. Me shooting more so 3D. So when you shoot it, I mean, it's coming down to that one shot, but in the field, it's just like, okay, so much more can go wrong. What's there? There's a deer right there. I mean, it
right.
Yeah, it's
screws
different
you
for
all
sure.
over. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Mark wants to know, which this is a good one because we cover a lot of this. What does good form really mean? Foot position, anchor points, hold your breath.
Yeah.
What would be a definition of good form, or
That-
is there one?
There's not really one. That's the thing. Like archery's all about consistency, doing something the same way over and over and over again. So technically, you get a really bad form, but do it the same every single time, and you still shoot really, really good.
Right.
But what good form does is it's more forgiving. You know, it's more reliable. You know, it's easier to replicate, and it's, you know, you won't get injured doing it, like we were talking
was
about,
gonna say, it's
drawing
healthier.
back and yeah. So when you have perfect form, it's easier to shoot better and longer and all that stuff. So it's not really a correct definition. to
And you
that,
save your
right?
cats and dogs, because like if you launch an arrow like you did at our house yesterday, you know, then
Yeah.
which was kind of intentional,
Yeah,
but it
kind of
was. But there's an arrow.
Kind of.
It might still be going right now.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
still going.
but it was.
There's a tractor going around with no farmer on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be in jail.
Don't worry. Good thing those have GPS now.
Yeah,
So get the job done. Roger wants to know what's the difference. What's the difference and benefits between conventional fletching and helical?
Okay.
So I'm guessing conventional he means straight.
Straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So what helical does is it just like stabilizes the arrow faster. It makes it spin, so there's more drag. So like in competition, we try. It depends on what we're shooting. If we're shooting like close range, a helical really won't do too much. But longer range, like if we're shooting, you know, like a field round or something, you really don't want a whole lot of helical because it does slow the arrow down a little bit, you know.
Creates
So
drag instead of.
I like to do like a 2 or 3 degree helical actually, like all the time. It's just a good mix medium.
What is like prepackaged arrows? What do those standardly come with, amount wise, or do you even know?
Straight? I don't know. 1
I s-
degree?
I was
Some
gonna say it's
definitely
either
have a
one or
little bit.
Because
two to one.
there's like a
It ain't
helical
much.
and then there's also like offset.
Right.
You know, so it's
Yeah.
different, but.
And
what-
like
I think
what's
most
the
it's like
benefit to an
2-degree
offset?
offset or
I was going to say,
something
like
that.
the
I think it
boning,
is-
you know, they all these fletching jigs, you can kind of set them,
Control
you know,
'em, yeah.
control it yourself. And I think the same thing. I don't know what my percentage is, but all mine are slightly turned to the right.
Yeah.
And I mean, now what about right or left? Because I've heard that if you're right-handed, you should shoot a right helical. If you're left-handed, but
I don't. My opinion on that is it doesn't really matter.
I don't think
There's
so
some
either.
guys that like do the arrow clocking and stuff, but I mean, I did a podcast.
Yeah, you
that.
just screwed me up on that. So
I did a podcast.
good to rethink my
um,
life.
the other month with Tim Galingham and George Riles, and George Riles' opinion was like, it doesn't work. Like, it's not a thing. It's something to do with how the bow reacts with the servings and stuff. And then Tim was all for it. But by the end of the podcast, they both were kind of in agreement that it doesn't really
Doesn't make that big a difference.
Not really, no.
Gotcha.
No.
So what about more fletchings though? As like some guys I've
Four
seen go
fletch or
from
three
3 to
fletch?
4. Yep.
4 fletch.
So 4 fletch, yeah. So 4 fletch does give the arrow more stabilization, but it's also noisier and heavier, you know. So it just depends, you know. And then on a drop away, a 4 fletch works good. But if you're running like a blade rest, you can do a 4 fletch, but
rough.
it's you can't. Yeah,
You have to
it's
run a
not
really
really
small blade.
Yeah.
Because then you get a whole lot of air contact. But I shoot like for not for competition, but for like just hunting.
Yeah.
I actually use like a really short like a shield cut, pretty much a smaller shield cut, but I 4 fletch it so it's not as high profile, so it don't catch the wind as much, but I still have enough to
Makes up
drive
for
the
it.
arrow. Yeah, absolutely. So it
stabilize
still
it.
stabilizes the arrow, but I just don't have as much sticking up high, so it's less wind drift at longer ranges.
Right.
Right. So think about
That
it,
kind
guys.
of
Like
goes into one of what Ben asked. He says, "What do you see for broadhead drift compared to field points?"
Okay. Yeah. Well, it depends on if you're shooting mechanical or fixed.
let's
obviously.
assume that he's
But,
talking
yeah,
about a fixed blade
fixed,
broadhead because
yeah.
most mechanicals are shooting similar to their field
I
points.
never
or
really
close to
tested
it.
that with like wind, but I would assume it would be quite a bit. I mean,
Well, I know just that when I shoot regular arrows, if I have a crosswind
Yeah.
at like 40,
Yeah.
and it's like a 7 to 10 mile an hour crosswind, you know, it makes
Couple
4 or
inches.
5 inches. Yeah. I haven't done that with a broadhead, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
yeah, assuming that
Exactly
it's
what-
tuned correctly. I mean, 50 yards with a slight breeze, it can move it a little bit. For
Right.
sure. Yeah. The biggest thing though with wind is it moves you.
Yeah.
You know, it moves
absolutely.
you more than the arrow. You know.
So
And
then would a 4 fletch catch more wind as well?
yes,
With
it would,
crosswinds?
It's
technically.
going to.
Yeah.
Depending on how, if you're shooting if you're shooting like a high profile, which goes back to that high profile, if you're shooting a higher profile vein, it's going to catch a whole lot more wind.
But how
Right.
much? I don't
Yeah.
know. And if it,
How much difference it
because there's
makes.
still human error and all
Yeah.
that, so it's like.
No, we need something to blame it on.
Yeah, so, but, hey, we can always find
That
something.
2 mile an hour wind
Chris
gets you
hasn't
every
been
time.
giving us much,
Well,
much
and
outs
because I
today.
do think that a lot of people blame a lot of shots on broadheads. It
Yeah.
happens,
Oh, yeah.
man. I mean, a guy hits he's like, "Oh, I'm switching broadheads this year because I lost a deer."
Yeah.
Well, I would bet most people that say that they didn't hit them where they were supposed to.
Right.
And if they had done that, it wouldn't matter what broadhead
Right,
that
could've
they
been-
shot them.
Probably could have been a field
Field
tip.
point,
You,
and they
you
would've
smoke a
killed it.
deer with a field tip in the heart.
Yep.
Yeah,
It
not
ain't going too far. It might not have a great blood trail, but I promise it will die.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so, but what happens is we start to, okay, the shot wasn't perfect. We want the broadhead to make up for our inefficiency.
If you're, I mean, if your bow's tuned right and you practice these broadheads and you make them shoot right, I mean, that's most important. You just can't take your field tips off, screw on a broadhead, and go.
So,
you
so
know?
let me ask this question because I don't know if anyone has asked it, but I think it would go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
You get I know that we've answered this question.
Yeah.
And that is you're shooting field points all year long. Your
Yeah.
bow is shooting 30, 40, 50 yards even that you're practicing, and it's
Yeah.
dead on with field points. And you screw on your broadheads, and you're a month before hunting season if you're not doing it the night before,
Yeah,
and you want
which
it.
I have done.
I have
I
to.
think everyone's.
And so you want to get stuff tuned
Yeah.
properly, and all of a sudden all your broadheads are 3 inches high right.
Yeah.
Is that an inconsistent bow setup, or could that just be the flight of the arrow?
Probably just a tuning issue.
It is.
So yeah, you just do walk back tune, or a trick is you just move. Don't you move? If you shoot a field tip and it goes in the middle, and you shoot a broadhead and it goes 3 inches right, you move your rest.
You move your
Move your
rest
field
left.
point to try to get. That's what I've always heard is you're trying to get that field point to land where the
so you
broadhead is.
essentially move your rest until they're both hitting the same.
Gotcha.
And it's trial and error.
But
essentially.
two, a field point covers up a lot. I mean, you put a broadhead on the front of it, and it's just going to magnify whatever
What
the
is
problem's going to be if you're
Yeah.
not bullet holing.
Right.
I mean, needless to say, bullet holing an arrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's tuning.
I
issue.
think some really practical questions that would be good for people. Practicing. Do you prefer to practice every day, or do you take days off?
That depends too.
That depends too. Like, so let's say tournament shooting. If I'm more training like per specific event, So like right now,
Because you'll change like your whole bow setup and everything for a
Could
tournament,
depends
right?
on what tournament it is. Yeah, for sure. But I'll go in spurts of training and then days off. Like I haven't really shot in the past 3-4 days. I've been traveling and doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I'm training for a tournament, like the 2 weeks prior, I'm really like almost every day in high volumes of arrows.
So what does a practice session look like for you?
Good question. So so I try to always, so right now let's say before I came here and before last weekend, I was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were shooting like every day, like a lot of arrows. So I would do a little bit of blank bailing before I like even started shooting. So that's.
Do you want to explain what blank bailing is?
Blank bailing is shooting at just like nothingness. You don't hang up a target. You just shoot at like a bail. You try not to aim at anything. You're thinking about form. You're thinking about everything. Basically, like gets you warmed up without trying to aim. Mm-hmm. And then I score. I score 72 arrows if it's outdoor, which is like a 720 round. Just
on
to see
3D or on like paper
target.
Just
Paper target.
paper target.
It's like right now my main thing is like 50-meter shooting.
So is that like the one single dot then?
Yeah.
Or okay, what's 50 meters in yards?
55 yards.
55 yards.
Yeah.
5 inches.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Not a metric.
But yeah, neither am I. It's
Damn
America.
Canadians.
Just kidding. Yeah.
So you're shooting 72 arrows
Yeah.
in a practice round then. And
Well, and that, depending, that's pretty standard. But if I'll keep going, like a shot, 200 arrows sometimes, 100 arrows sometimes. It just depends. You don't want to shoot. High volume day is like typically a few days before the event, and then like the day before an event, you want to like calm down a little bit.
Does your shooting get worse as you go, like as you get tired, or do you kind of get in a groove and get
Sometimes
better?
you get in a groove, sometimes you get tired. When you get tired, you don't want to make bad habits, so
So
normally
you
you
stop.
Yeah, you stop.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, that was one of our next questions is how do you know when to quit?
Yeah, when you start getting tired.
Okay.
You don't want to create bad habits, so it's a slow progression.
So make sure you guys don't move stuff.
I can tell you, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that is a big hunter thing. They go out, maybe they're shooting 10 arrows at they're on at 20, 30, 40.
Yeah.
And then they have the 3D course. At least every place that we've ever lived, there's typically a place that you can practice. You have belonged to the club or whatever. So you're shooting this, and then you go to shoot 3D, and they shoot the first 4 or 5 targets, and they're doing okay. And then all of a sudden, something's a little different, and then immediately that okay, well I was left there, I
Right.
was left on this target. All right, let's adjust this, and then that doesn't do it, and they can't figure out what happened. And next thing you know, they got their rest moved and everything else, and
No,
been there,
for
done
sure,
it,
dude.
and I can tell you one of the things that where I'm coming from on that was I found out that lifting weights, and I think you were talking about
Yeah, we
playing
talked
sports.
about that a little bit, yeah.
That when you start really truly hunting or truly want to shoot a bow well, you got to stop some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tricky, and you deal with it a lot with like, when you're helping out kids or whatever. It's like they have so many sports and so many this and that, and they can get hurt. And like archery is so sensitive on getting hurt, like our fingers, and it's just trust me, breaking arms and stuff. It's like can't do that. But working out too. You have to be either need a really strict schedule with shooting and working out, or like you just have to like chill out when you're like really training and stuff.
Yeah.
Just go more cardio.
Well, I know he's had the same. I mean, we obviously our family we work out hard
Yeah.
as far as weights, and I can tell you there are days when we can't draw a bow.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And it's like, okay, nothing changed on the bow. It's just that your body is so fatigued from what you did the day before, early that morning or something.
Back day and bow day don't go together.
Right. So what I found was the best thing for me to do, and then I just started doing this years ago, was I shoot probably 3 to 4 days a week. Try to all year long.
Okay.
And then when hunting season would get around, and for me, when I lived in Montana, it would start in September or even August when antelope season. And once that got there, I put away the gym. I mean, and then it would take me still a week or so to everything kind of relax, and then I would find that rhythm. And then once I was there, now I would go to the gym and I would do cardio and things like that, but I did not lift weights. And people were like, "Are you nuts?" Well, what I found was it was not only helping me in my hunting because I was more consistent shooting, but and then when I would come back January 1 every year, I would come back and quickly get back into physical shape because I'd given my body 3 months to really rest. I'm not saying that I just quit,
Right.
But I wasn't, just took it
Going like
easy.
you were,
absolutely.
And-
So let's just say you take a week off and then you come back.
yeah.
Yep, and you come back and you start shooting again. Are you dead on, or do you have to make some micro adjustments?
Yeah, typically, like probably when I get back after this trip, I'll have that first day probably will be a light arrow day.
Yeah.
You know, and just get back into it. And maybe that next day will be, you know, a little bit more. But yeah, it
And
takes.
so then would you
wouldn't-
you move anything,
No, I
or
wouldn't change anything.
you're
I'll
just making
get
sure
right
that
back into it. Yeah.
And then what would you consider off, like an inch, 2 inches?
No, it's not in accuracy. It's just in feel.
How it feels.
Yeah, because it's gonna feel, you know, you'll be just a little different or whatever.
Right.
You know, I'll still probably shoot fine, but it'll just when
Won't
you're in
settle right.
when you're in a rhythm, like
Yeah.
like the other day or the other week when we were down in Atlanta, like those 3 days we shot like 200 arrows a day, and it was just like all those days are stellar. You know,
Right.
shooting really high scores, really good. And when you get in those rhythms, you know. I mean, a lot of the top pros, you know, they stay in that rhythm. You know, they always, but really they're traveling event to event to event and little practice in between, but they're always just. In
So
that
what do you
rhythm.
consider dialed in? Like, is
What do
it
you mean?
for, like, let's just say 60 yards? You know, like if I'm hitting that,
Yeah.
I'm dialed in.
Well, I mean-
Is you hitting a pop, like a bottle cap, or?
Well, so I'll run off of sight tapes. So when I make a sight tape, I get my 20-yard mark, and I'll actually put either a Sharpie line or a piece of electrical tape, so like left to right, east to west.
Yep.
And I'll shoot along that line to get dialed in. I'm not worrying about left and rights at all. It's all about up and down. So I'll get really dialed in, and this is a trick that's out there.
So you're trying to stay on that tape.
Yeah, and you just kind of like float
for your-
along that tape, and you just shoot at it, and then I'll move back to like 60, 70, get that mark on that same line of tape, and I'll get my sight tape, and then I'm on, like wherever.
And so, but like, what do you expect yourself to be hitting? Like at 60,
hit
you
it.
expect to be hitting in the center of that every time.
Hit it, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm capable of hitting it for sure, but I don't know. 60 yards with a hunting bow, I should at least get a 4 or 5 inch group.
Right.
You know, target.
Because I don't think there's a, you know, you can't teach, like we're going to be teaching another 50 kids here in Iowa. You can't
Right.
tell them, okay, you're on if you're hitting the target,
Right.
you know, or you're on if you're hitting this.
Right.
There's no law,
No,
you know,
it's
but it's got to be,
personal.
you got to personally feel
personal
like,
growth and personal everything. Yeah, that's what archery is. And what we try to say too in archery, you're against yourself. You're trying to beat yesterday,
Yeah.
and that's really with anything.
Right.
But with life development, business, you're just trying to like be better the next day.
For sure. How big of a difference does your target bow make?
Quite a bit of a difference. You know, it's longer axle typically. The cams are, you know, more designed for, you know, high performance, just shooting. It's not really a Hoyt at least isn't super quiet. They don't really like sacrifice anything for like it to be quiet. You know, like
On
they
a
try.
there's
target
no
bow.
need.
Yeah, there's no need.
right,
You know, and
right.
everyone's like,
You
"Oh,
wanna
that
spook
bow's
that
so
guy shooting
loud."
next to you.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
bow's
who
so
cares?
loud. It's like it's hitting the
I was
middle.
like, do you not see
You know?
that X?
So it's like, no,
Dennis
I mean,
wants to know, what poundage do you shoot if you're flinging 100 arrows?
yeah. So I mean, most target bows, at least for USA archery stuff, they don't let you go over 60 pounds, so they cap you off at 60.
What's the reasoning behind that?
So you don't
So
abuse
is that what
targets.
you're shooting in?
Well, you don't abuse targets, and really just to keep regulation on stuff, you know.
Yeah. So, is that what you're shooting, is 60?
Yeah, we set them at like 59, most guys. So you have that. You have like a 1 pound variance. It's a percentage. It's like 3% or something.
Right.
Yeah, to be safe, because you have to check your bow when you check in, like
Right.
when you check into the tournament or whatever.
Do they have you like shoot through a chrono and everything, right?
Not
Or
a
is
chron.
that-
Well, for ASA
Yeah,
stuff.
for ASA, you have to be 290.
Yeah, so
and
for
there's a 3% there as well.
3D tournament stuff.
no more than 290 or?
Yeah, no more than 290. Well, 3% margin of error, but it has to be under 290, so you can't.
So USA Archery, they regulate poundage. 3D and ASA regulate speed.
Gotcha.
So you could have a more poundage bow, but your speed.
Gotta have a heavier arrow or
Start
something
either
to slow it
weighting your
down.
arrow
Right.
down, or
Right.
Yeah.
there's 100 different
Yeah.
equations you can meet that with. Whether
So a lot of guys, if they shoot both, they shoot target stuff and ASA, they'll have 2 different bows.
yeah,
You know, one set up for this, one set up for that.
And does that affect your shooting? I mean, do you do that, or I mean,
I
can
have
you
done
shoot
that,
one
yeah.
bow better than the other, or really it doesn't matter?
Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. You know, different setups shoot better than others. Sometimes you like get a bow
You just
where
have
it's
a
like
bow,
for
yeah.
some reason you set it up different a little bit and it's like just rocking.
just killer.
Yeah, I just set up a bow. Well, I had a bow for indoor season and it was doing really good. brought it to outdoor, and it was like I was doing all right. But then I got another bow, and I set it up, and it was like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just a new bow feel or what, but yeah.
Well, it's nice when you get that one that you're
New
like,
bow feel,
if you shoot archery and you do it long enough, you're gonna find one day. You know, and that's what we tell people about buying a bow.
Yeah.
Is don't go to don't listen to us or their buddy and go buy whatever manufacturer they
brand,
tell you, because that's what fits them. That's what feels
Right.
comfortable to them. Go to your local archery shop. Tell them, look, I don't know what I want. Have them put rests on 6 or 7 different bows. Don't look at the price tag and just shoot. And one of them you'll be like, okay, that feels good. It draws well. That's the one you should go with. Typically what I found when I would tell people that, they didn't end up with the most expensive bow every time. And they ended up with something that fit them and helped them.
Right.
You know,
Enjoy
and-
it.
Or
yeah.
if they did, you got them in trouble with
Yeah,
their wives.
well, so no, that's cool. That's really
Joseph
good.
says he can't even think of shooting 200 arrows in a day. His arm would fall off, and, and it would no longer be fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things you build up to it, and it's
Yeah,
not
it's
that bad. I
endurance.
mean, yeah, it's. But like you say, if you get into a rhythm too, I mean, you get into a rhythm sometimes, and you're just not even thinking about what you're doing, and you look down at the clock, and you're like, holy crap, I've been shooting for a while. Yeah, you start getting tired, but then when it starts dipping a little bit out, and you're having a struggle to hold it like you should be, then you need to quit.
Right.
Robert wants to know if you do any specific exercises, like working out exercises for shooting your bow.
So not specifically like working out, but there's a lot of balance exercises that you can do. Like there's they have these little like exercise balls that you can stand on and do like balance training.
Like a half ball where it sits
Yeah,
and then
yep.
it's
Yeah, and you stand on that, and you can actually like do different, like even just pick your bow up and stand on them. Like it's kind of hard to do if you haven't done that, and then eventually work your way all the way up to shooting on them. But yeah, I mean, other than working out, you just good back, shoulder exercise, just really building up your shoulder strength and everything. And
I'd be afraid to hold my bow on a ball, because if I come off of that thing, I'd have like a mattress next to me so I can throw it on the mattress.
yeah,
Yeah, at full draw, that'd be great.
But I think one of the biggest things, and guys, you're going to want to go watch these videos, because one of the biggest things that I watched with both of you guys, particularly you yesterday when we were outside, was when you see how these guys draw their bow, you'll see why they're able to shoot more than most people. You guys are making it look so effortless because you're drawing the bow correctly.
right.
And so many people are just trying to muscle it back, or they're doing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
We talked about sky drawing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and just when you guys shoot, everything is so smooth.
yeah. Well, that just goes back to like one of our first questions is form. Like, why is form so important? Stuff. It just allows you to do things effortlessly and injury free and all that stuff.
Yeah. Ben wants to know, what do you think about the guys practicing cold shots? And so I'm guessing he means like,
Walking out the back
Yeah.
door and shooting
Yes.
a target at 80
Yeah.
yards. I mean, I think that's awesome because realistically, hunting
Hunting-wise,
you
I was gonna say,
you don't get 20 warm up
Yeah.
shots.
that first shot
Is it.
that's the one you should walk out and say.
Yeah.
But now when you guys are shooting competition, no, you need a whole bunch.
Well,
it
I was going to say the
depends,
first shot of a 20 round course for ASA. I mean, you walk up to your first 3D target, buddy, and it's like, I mean, it
better be there.
Yeah, it better be there. I mean,
Yeah,
because
so
you can
yeah,
blow
I
your
get it.
tournament on
Yeah.
your first shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
But more like target stuff, we have practice rounds.
Yeah.
And you can practice before.
So you get warmed up.
You get warmed
Yeah.
up for that stuff. But yeah, more 3D style stuff.
Yeah, it's-
you're going right into it. Pretty
you only
fresh.
shoot, and for that, I mean, it's not really endurance. You aren't shooting a lot. I mean, you're shooting 20 arrows, and that's it. I mean, you can shoot before to like to practice,
quality,
but
Right.
yeah.
but it's more of like, all right, you walk up to this tournament, and it might take sometimes 20, 30 minutes between each shot. I mean, depending on the
cold
group
shot every
that you're
time,
shooting. It's
pretty
almost a cold shot every time. So you walk up to it, you're ranging it, you're making sure everything's on it, and it's like pressure's on, and you have to execute that shot. I mean, that's
I know one thing that I do now, and I've probably been doing it for years, hunting wise, is I get out of the truck or the gator or whatever, or even just walking to my stand, I'll draw my bow, once or twice, just to kind of, number one, make sure all the equipment, because especially if we're wearing a lot of clothes, just to make sure everything feels good, but it just does warm up those muscles.
Well, I like to, when I get up in the stand, I like to draw back because sometimes you draw back and you're like, oh, there's that limb
Yep.
right there. There's, that right there, and just,
Or you hit that tree.
or you hit that like we were doing. Yeah. So I always, most of the time when I climb up in a stand, drop back once.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great question that he asked, though, so.
Sorry, I'm answering Eddie.
He's asking how many arrows do we shoot for practice?
Yeah.
I think because he's referring to just hunting. And I guess I don't mind answering that. Or Warren, what do you think? Because I know Warren shoots more than me.
Really it depends on the day for me. If I walk out and the first 4 arrows are right there, and if I don't feel like shooting anymore, I'm done. I just hang it up. I'm good. But if it's one of those deals where I'm not really where I want to be, I'd say 50 arrows. I mean, I used to shoot 400 arrows in a day.
Oh, man.
I'd go through a bowstring in like a month.
He was the kid. I'm not kidding. When he was 12, 13 years old,
Shoot all the time.
he would shoot, this is in the summer when he wasn't in school. He'd go out at like 9 in the morning and he'd shoot for an hour. And then he'd go back out at noon and 3. And at 7 o'clock, Dad's going to go out and shoot in the evening, And here as soon as he's like standing in front of me, and I'm like, okay, dude, you've already shot 4 times today. I'm sure it's still on from, get out of the way. That's a good problem to have, by the way, if your kid's doing that,
It's like shooting a free throw, where the last one you had to make it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd put my arrows there, but then I just wanted to make it again. And so I'd just smoke one more round, and then I'd miss it one. And so then I got to shoot another round. It was like a never-ending circle. But now I just don't have that much time, though, either, as much to do it. But that would be one thing I definitely tell all hunters is I think you need to be practicing year-round. Yeah. Don't pull it out in August, the last week.
Especially if you're new. I mean, the less experience you have, the more practice you need.
Right.
Because it's not like a rifle. Once it's dialed in, like we talked about working out or just being fatigued, and little tiny things can change, and you want to keep up with that. If that is happening.
When you want to be able to check your equipment and stuff too, make sure you don't have your strings that are all frayed.
And that's the only place I would say that I limit my practice is when I'm on a trip and I don't have a spare bow with me or something like that. I want to shoot some stuff, but I also don't want to shoot until I do. We've had that happen. I'm trying to remember where it was that we broke. I think it was Canada, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I want to say it was a peep sight or something that came loose on or it actually came undone. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but it was one of those deals where we didn't have what we needed to fix it. Luckily, I did have just enough spare parts to kind of make it, okay, we can get through that,
Right.
But that was, again, when you and your brother were younger, and so they weren't practicing. They were shooting the squirrels and everything else in the yard of the place that we were hunting in Canada. But the outfitter was encouraging them, He's like, yeah, come on, let's go shoot this, Let me throw some stuff out here, and we'll get them right here. And I'm like, he's got to try to kill a bear, and I'm going to be filming him. If he misses, we might both get eaten, so we don't want to do that.
Dennis wants to know heavy arrows versus small arrows for a hunting purpose. So I'm guessing he's either saying heavy arrows versus light arrows or regular diameter versus micro.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it really depends on what you're hunting for one, what your bow setup is for 2, and really personal preference for 3. I like to run. I mean, mainly I hunt whitetails, so I like to run like a heavier setup, and I'm shooting quite a few pounds, like 70 to 80, depending on the setup. So I'll run like a 550 grain arrow, Easton full metal jacket, and just 100 grains in the front, or 120 with the insert in the front. So it's a pretty heavy setup, but it's still moving at like 290 feet per second.
what would you say, just to give people an idea, is like a bear, you're like hunting deer, we'll just say deer, but that's what else anybody could say, like don't go below.
Well, I mean, it just depends on, the setup, but heavier I think is better.
Yeah.
Running a light arrow with an expandable on it is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that's smart.
Yep.
So I think for sure, if you're running just a strictly carbon arrow, if you would run like brass in the front for a heavier weight, that's always great. So now you have, 150 in the front compared to just straight up.
Right.
So, I don't like to get too technical with all that stuff. Like, I think just in
So
general.
what do you think of the whole FOC thing? Does
Front
that
center,
have a lot of,
You better explain that,
I mean,
because some people are
yeah,
going to know what
front
FOC
and
stands
center.
for.
Yeah.
talking about front and center of the arrow, And I don't know much about it. I just seen, it seems like all of a sudden it's being talked about a ton. Everyone's like,
I
I
mean,
got a 12% FOC, or
I mean,
got this
I
percent.
shoot an Easton Hex FOC. I have 50 grains of brass up front, and it's going to come down. I mean, I did that. The reason I want FOC is because I am shooting a lighter carbon arrow, so I want brass up front. So yes, that's going to increase my FOC. But I mean, if you're shooting like an FMJ and you already have that weight there, I mean, it's going to depend. Same thing. It's going to depend on your setup.
Is it something that a guy needs to worry about though, on getting it?
I mean, guys dive really deep into this, and there's a lot of discussions on it. And like, I just don't think it's that much to think about and stuff.
Right.
As long as you have a heavy enough setup for what you're going for, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like break out all the spreadsheets and calculate, I need FOC, or whatever. I think as long as you're running a heavy enough setup with the correct broadhead for the correct game, I mean.
If I did half of the stuff that
now-
people get so into, I mean, you have to, like, you've seen that meme of the guy from The Hangover, where he's like doing all of the science equations. Like, that's a whole bunch of bow hunters, trying to figure out the numbers of everything.
Well, in some cases, the states are going to dictate what your setup is. They're going
absolutely.
to tell you how big your broadhead has to be or how much poundage. Make sure you're checking especially it seems like women and kids are. I'm not saying that there aren't some men out there that aren't shooting heavyweight.
Right, 40,
or-
50-pound bows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen. I feel like if you're over 40, that's probably you're legal in any state, but don't quote me on that because I don't know.
Right.
But I know some are like 7/8 of an inch cutting diameter. Used to in Montana, you couldn't shoot a lighted knock,
Right.
and you couldn't shoot one
Light
here in
knock,
Iowa.
expandables are,
Yep.
yeah.
And there's still some states where you can't shoot expandables. I
Yeah,
think
make
Alaska.
sure you check those, because a
Idaho, I
lot of
think you
people
couldn't
take that
shoot.
for granted and think that you can do that anywhere.
Yep.
Make sure that you check those laws out, especially out west.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can actually shoot lighted knocks in Montana now.
Yes,
but
no,
I think in Idaho, I still don't think you can shoot mechanical
don't think
broadheads.
so.
Right.
Montana, you can now though.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. A lot of people run up. Make sure you have your bow under head. And like, if you're going to Montana, I think Idaho's the
There's
same.
11 states now that require it. And
Yep.
so even if you have your hunter ed, if your state doesn't need bow hunter ed, a lot of people are not getting that.
Right.
And then they get somewhere, and we had a young man come to camp that was from Oregon. His dad took him to Idaho last year. They get over there, and he's like, my son doesn't have bow hunter ed. He has hunter ed from Oregon. And then the guy says, well, I can't sell him a license. And then the kid says, hey, Dad, I got that at Raise the Full Draw. And they went and
right
looked in
on.
the system, and sure enough, there it was.
Sweet.
So
That's
it worked.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a really
that
good
is
deal.
cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome about the camp.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
That
amazing.
everyone gets certified,
Yeah, that's
as long as
awesome.
they pass. But yeah, but I guess the insight we would give them a little bit on is, for instance, Karen has shot clean through an elk, expandable broadhead. I can't tell you exactly what the weight of the arrow was, but she was shooting right at the 48 to 50 pound mark.
Right.
And she shot clean through the elk. The arrow was hanging by the fletching on the other side.
Right.
But her shot placement was perfect.
Right.
And
on the shoulder.
shot.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess my point is with that is that if you know what but I can also give you the example of Easton. I set up his bow, and I had an expandable broadhead trying to help him at 10 years old kill his first turkey, and he was pulling about 35 or 40 pounds, I
I think
think.
he was at 40, but his draw length was still like 22.
Yeah, it was like 21,
Super short,
22. And so I went to a smaller head, just like what I shot, because we shoot an expandable, the biggest we can get that expands like 2.5 inches to hang up in the turkey.
Right.
And I also shoot him in a different spot. I shoot him in the legs.
Right.
And I taught him that, and he absolutely did exactly what Dad had taught him. He hit the first 2 turkeys absolutely perfect, and then we watched the arrow in the video bounce off the turkey.
Really?
I mean, the one he actually he does that with his wing, and the arrow goes bloop. And we switched him we had a fixed blade broadhead in camp. Next day we go back out with a fixed blade broadhead, and he kills his first turkey. So that was on me. That was on Dad, because I put it the wrong setup. He was making the shot, and I was just about to ruin him because he was so frustrated. He's like, Dad, I'm doing what I'm supposed
Like,
to.
what am I? Yeah.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, and that's like little Coop. He's 11, and he shoots like 42 pounds, and he's on this expandable kick. He's like, I want to shoot him, and I'm like, I won't let him. I still want him to shoot like a 2-blade.
You always want to do what you can.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
And
a heck of a shot.
Oh,
yeah.
Holy
100%.
He shot a turkey.
Coop's beast.
He shot a turkey this year at like 16, 17 yards. and just absolutely smoked it. You
Yeah.
know, like right there.
Yeah, he crushed that thing.
Yeah.
Coop's a
That's
beast.
cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I need
Yeah,
him to come get
what-
me tips
what-
on how to shoot.
What is, it's Cooper, what's his last name?
Byram.
Cooper Byram. I would suggest that you guys might want to know that name because I gotta think.
Write it down.
He was at the Iowa Deer Classic
Yeah.
with you, and
No, he had fun.
it was quite the. I mean, I think a lot of people were because they come and sit in those stands.
Oh, yeah.
And I had numerous people come to our booth, and they were like, "Man, there's this little kid down there," and he's
Yeah,
like,
no.
unreal, you know. I mean, so yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, Easton was giving you crap and you didn't know it. He's like, he's gonna outshoot him.
Yeah.
I mean, he did amazing. He started shooting, and I'm sitting there scoring, and we're like, me and Chris, I look at Chris, and I'm like, golly, and we get to the end of the round, and we're like, all right, you know, just execute that shot. And I mean, we get a little nervous. I mean, he just absolutely drills it, and he goes, like, what's up, guys? And we're like, good gracious.
Yeah, that kid seems like he has
He's
no
awesome.
problem handling any kind of pressure. He's super calm and collected.
He's cool. He's awesome.
Yep. Those make the
cool.
best athletes. It's like we do like that Kansas camp in Kansas, and like Adam LaRoche, he was a professional baseball player, and just cool as a cucumber. I mean, you could have his leg on fire, and he'd be like, "Hey, could you aim the fire extinguisher?" You know, it's just super chill.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think that I mean, I can't speak for you guys. I guess I'd like to hear your opinion, but I think that the mental aspect of shooting a bow
It's huge.
is almost bigger than the physical.
It is. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that goes for hunting and I would imagine competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes down to like even I said before. I mean, it comes down to you have to make the shot, and it's coming down to the mental part of it. Like I think you had said it earlier. I mean, the biggest competitor yet of anybody else is yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, because there's no telling how many hours you spend practicing and making that shot, and just saying, all right, this is the arrow, and just pulling that one arrow out and just clean execute, make sure this is a perfect arrow, and then you get there knowing you can do it, but in a sense you want to prove, not necessarily prove it to others, but at the end of the day you want to prove it to yourself that you can do this on whatever platform or level that you're doing it at.
Right.
But head game is everything.
You know, and so I think you mentioned you play baseball or played baseball.
For a while, yeah.
And that was something that I've taught these guys from the time they were little was, and the best description I could give them was walking to the plate. There are days when you walk to the plate and you were like, oh my gosh, this kid's going to kill me. You know, he's going to throw a curveball. I mean, especially if it was that pitcher that was just fast, you know, or whatever. And so it seemed like when the ball came, it looked like a golf ball. And it was like, you're lucky if you even swung, you know. But then there was days when, and maybe, and I would try to, and we did a show about this, about Easton, and all about confidence. Because man, there's times when you walk up there and you're like, okay, I know that I'm dialed in. I know that I'm going to do this right. And when they threw the ball, it looked like a softball coming to you.
Right.
And I see that with archery for myself. There are days when I go, I'm like, this feels good, this feels right, and then I think that's the groove you guys are talking about.
It seems like the 10 ring's so big sometimes you can't miss it.
It does.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's
like,
just like you can't not
then-
that you can't mess up, but it's
yeah,
like
and then sometimes it's like, jeez, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear that. I mean, that there's a human element
Oh,
to the guy
for
who's
sure.
really good at what he does.
No,
you know,
I'm
and a
still
professional.
far, like in my mind, I'm still far from, you know, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll
That's
never.
what keeps you driving.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
You think that you, Taylor wants to know if you've ever gotten target panic on a deer.
No,
No.
I never have, but I know that's a thing for sure.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that in general, I have had like slight target panic stuff or like tournament archery,
Yep.
because there's all symptoms of it. There's like target panic that you just get at tournaments because you're nervous, you know, and then there's target panic that just all around, like you can't even like look at the center, you know. So there's all sorts of target
I've heard some
panic.
pretty crazy stories on that.
Yeah, there's guys that like missing the bail at
Yeah.
Vegas because they just can't even hold
pull it
themselves
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that nervous in the atmosphere. So
Yeah,
really,
and
the
it-
target panic is more of a mental state then. It's just overcoming
all
it.
it is.
That's
That's
all
all
it is.
target
Yeah.
panic is.
That's all it is.
I would think it's very relatable to golf in that you just don't even let it come into your conversation.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like Tin Cup or whatever, you know, when he's trying to hit the ball into the, I mean,
Yeah.
now it's just, I'm going to do this, you know. And
whenever there's
80% mental.
what's that?
Golf is 80% mental.
Same with archery.
Yeah.
Yeah. We say like 85, 90% is mental.
That's the same chance that I should not golf anymore.
You don't think about it. The moment you start to think about it, it's
When you start screwing up.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
for sure. So archery's the same way.
And I think that's where you hear people
You
talk
have to
about
figure
it.
out the mechanics first, though. 'Cause
Well, I
I can
think-
tell you with golfing right now, I have a lot of stuff.
It
If I
might
don't
be
think
more
about it,
mechanics
it's
for you.
way whack. Yeah.
But I think that happens a lot with deer. People will talk about, oh, he just showed up, and so I made a great shot. They love that because they didn't have time to think. Where when
Didn't,
he's,
yeah.
when he's coming and he stops,
Eating in
and
the food plot for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're tore to pieces.
and you're looking at the antlers growing, or a doe, it's your first deer, or whatever,
yeah.
and you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and then, or they stop right behind a tree as you're about to come to full draw,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh
No,
no,
for sure.
And then what do I do? Then you're in between. Yeah, there's a zillion different things that can enter there.
You go from shooting a tennis ball all year long, and then there's this doe standing there at 15 yards, and you shot that tennis ball at 40, 100 times, and it's like, man, how can you miss? And then it's just like the same thing sets in, and it just happens. Absolutely, just happens.
The bobcat, me and you were in the tree.
Yeah.
Remember that I
You
missed?
got really lucky.
I missed the bobcat completely.
Really?
At what, 8 yards?
Yeah, it was
9
super
yards?
close.
I mean, well, we're doing the interview to get out of the tree.
Yeah.
Where, it's like, okay, let's get out of here. And all of a sudden he's like, because I'm turned looking at the camera, and he's looking behind, he's like, Dad, bobcat. And I turn around, and here comes walking down. Well, I can't believe it lets me get my bow, knock an arrow, and shoot
Right.
at it. And, I'm like hurrying to do everything. And then I come to full draw, and I shoot right under it. And so what's it do? It stops and starts sniffing the arrow. I'm like, no way. So I
my
knock another
goodness.
arrow, and
That
then
never happens.
Yeah, and then I shoot the second time,
Yeah.
almost cut it in half.
Yeah, it was like a.
Yeah,
like
I cut it with a
9-inch
2-blade
cut. It was
expandable
ridiculous.
broadhead, and
Right,
so
right.
At an
they're
angle.
not very big, and and it was at an
angle,
angle, and so, but just I could tell you that the first time I was thinking, hurry, hurry, hurry. Second time I was like,
More relaxed.
yeah, because he's not going to stay here. And again, I got to that point, I was like, well, he's still here,
Right.
and I was perfect,
Right.
So,
Yep.
anything else, man, or do we want to cut it short or cut it? It ain't
We're
short.
almost
That-
an hour, so
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, I could sit here, Chris. And,
Yeah, no,
and,
absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
this is fun. I
It
mean,
is
if
awesome.
you like archery, this is the kind of stuff. I mean, I wish this was around when I was younger, where you could get on something and watch and listen
absolutely.
to people talking about mistakes they've made and things they've done right. And what I love about talking to these two guys is, Coburn, I don't think you have a professional card, or do you? Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, because I'm not trying
Not
to
the card.
discredit.
No, absolutely not. He's had the homework where I'm pushing in more like the 3D part of it. And
Gotcha.
yeah, on that side, I've pushed into it. Yeah.
But both of these guys, sitting here, watching them shoot yesterday, I can tell you that they shoot far better than I ever have, without a doubt. And I don't mind saying that. I love the fact that I can hunt, and that's why I just keep my distances closer. My effective range is not where theirs is at. But I have to say, two of the most humble guys I've ever met, to carry yourselves the way you do. Hats off. And that is why we reached out and said, hey, would you guys mind coming and helping us do that?
It's been awesome.
Because we want this app to have the right people delivering the right message.
Yeah.
And Chris B has done a fantastic job, and we haven't even put any of it together, just with what we've done.
Yeah, I would seriously tell you guys, because especially a lot of the questions that you guys have asked, make sure that you watch the video. 'Cause we have guys asking about grip and stuff like that. We
Covered it.
Gone over the exact placement on that in the app, and Kristen does a great job of explaining things and laying them out in a really practical, easy way to do it. So make sure you're watching for that. Obviously, we'll let you know when we let that out on the app. But make sure you go and follow Chris too. And I don't know if you have social channels as well. Coburn, he's a busy dude, so he can't do all that.
Pretty
but
much.
Make sure you go. I put Chris's YouTube in here for you guys. Go support him. Follow his Facebook, his Instagram, and stuff, because we really appreciate him coming here, and he's doing some cool stuff. So
Yeah, and if you have something that you do want to see, shoot
Yeah.
us a message, shoot Chris a message.
Yeah.
However you need to get a hold of us so that we know, we'll build some more. I
yeah,
mean, that's
and we got one more day of filming, so messages
Yeah.
pretty quick on that. If you want Killer B in it, that's my new nickname for him.
Killer B.
So I think it's pretty cool. If you ask me, if my last name was B, I'd have coined that a long time ago.
I can do some cool stuff.
Oh, that would
Last
definitely be my
Yeah, you
Instagram
can.
handle. So we'll answer one last question for Mitchell real quick. He says, I just got back into shooting a bow 6 months ago after not picking one up in 21 years.
Dang.
I do much better shooting 3D than I do shooting paper bullseyes. Does that happen to any of you?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I feel like for 3D, like we were saying earlier, it's that one shot. So a lot of times guys can hold it together for that one shot and do good. Then they go to a paper where it's or more targets, and their flaws show more because you just shoot and you're scoring rings and everything. So I feel like that's when there's that type of issue, there's like a form flaw or shooting flaw or something like that. Because really, you look at like Levi Morgan, he can shoot really good at both. Dan McCarthy can shoot really good at both. All the top pros and everything, they shoot good at both. So I feel like when there's that type of situation where they shoot really good 3D, then they move over to target shows more of your flaws, in my opinion. So
Right.
there's
Absolutely.
some sort of disconnect there.
I
Because
think
you
for
can-
me personally, I definitely see a difference when it comes I think a lot of it might be just the fact that shooting at a 3D target or something where I can pick the spot.
Yeah.
If I'm off by an inch
Right.
of really where it was, you don't pay that much attention.
Right.
Or if I'm off by 2 inches, where you see that on the bullseye or
Paper
whatever, and
face,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm right,
Yeah,
or I'm left.
yeah, for sure.
And then I have certain targets. I was asking him that exact question yesterday. Is there certain targets that are harder for you to shoot at than
Right.
others? So I know for me personally that it does, but there's a really good chance that there's probably some flaws, and there definitely is in some of my stuff. But I have seen that there's definitely certain targets that are easier for me to shoot at, and 3D is a lot easier for me to shoot at.
I think the 3D target is just not showing you. It's more forgiving. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you don't realize
You're
that
shooting
you're
more for that.
Yep.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's a whole lot bigger 10 ring that can cover up a lot. Yeah, sometimes it's crazy hard to find that 10 ring, but still, it's more playing a 12 game when it comes to that. It's not necessarily the
I think the
10s.
way that, to me, I had a bunch of women at this past camp for Raise the Full Draw, and then we got the kids coming this week, and I was using a demonstration, and the women said that really helped them understand, and the term aim small, miss small.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did was I explained to these women, if I take my hat off and I ask you to shoot my hat and you miss by an inch,
Yeah.
you miss by this, and then you do it again and you miss by an inch and you're this way,
Yeah.
well, now your group is this big.
Right.
And if I take just my finger and I hold it, I say, I want you to shoot at my finger, and you miss my finger by an inch,
Yeah.
and then you miss it by an inch this way,
Yeah.
your group's only this big.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think I can't even remember the gentleman's name that we were answering. Mitchell. I think, Mitchell, if I were you, I would maybe stick with the paper, start seeing what you can do to correct that, and then I think you would see that you're shooting better on both.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But that's you're just not seeing that margin of error on that 3D target probably.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Can we go eat some
wanna wrap
Mexican
it up?
food now?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
I said next.
all right, guys, well, we're going to get out of here now. We're going to go eat because we're all starving. But thanks again. Again, Chris B., Coburn Carter, and what we want to make sure that you guys understand is all this stuff's going to be housed on the Raised Outdoor app. Please go there and check it out. Go to Chris's YouTube page as well. But if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate. You can get a hold of us through Raised Hunting. You can message us on Facebook. We're on everything, that you can think of. And this is what it's all about. And that's why these guys are here, is we want to help you guys get better. And that's going to help us all continue this. The goal of this is not to make millions of dollars. The goal is so that their kids, my kids are already in. Hopefully Warren's kids will continue this. We'd be selfish if we took it and ran off with it. It's too cool. That feeling you guys are talking about of nerves and everything is also what we all live for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Sure.
awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you guys.
See you. We'll see you for a while.